Hello everyone. In my previous sessions, I explained different types of neural networks. Today, I am going to answer a very practical question. When should you use which neural network? Because knowing theory is not enough. As an engineer or architect, you must know where to apply what. So before choosing any neural network, first analyze few parameters that I'm going to explain in this video. We will focus on four things for each network: use cases, strengths, weaknesses, and cost. So these are the parameters you must consider before you choose to use any neural network. To keep this session simple and focused, I will cover 5 neural networks today, and remaining 5 I will explain in another video as part 2. Alright, so let's begin. First one is feed-forward neural network. Now imagine you have simple business data like customer data, sales data, or fraud detection data. In such cases, the feed-forward neural network works very well. So, where do we use it? Basic prediction, classification, fraud detection, customer scoring. So these are the best use cases to use. Its biggest advantage is it performs really well on structured and tabular data. But it has limitations. Number one, it does not work well for images or sequential data. Number two, it requires manual feature engineering. So you need to prepare your data properly. Now, if I talk about cost, it is relatively low to medium. So overall, simple, effective, and affordable. The next one is convolutional neural network. Now suppose your problem is related to image. For example, face detection, medical scans, CCTV monitoring, etc. Then CNN is your go-to model. And why? Because CNN can automatically detect edges, patterns, and objects inside images. You don't need to manually tell it what to look for. That is its biggest strength. But again, there are challenges. First, it needs a large amount of labeled images. Second, training is computationally expensive. So you need good infrastructure. I will explain what we mean by good infrastructure in my later videos. That is why the cost is usually medium to high. Third one is recurrent neural network. Now let's move to problem where sequence matters. For example, text prediction, speech recognition, time series data, etc. Here order is important. That is where RNN comes in. Its strength is it understands sequences better than CNN. But there are two major problems. First one is vanishing gradient problem. Second one is training is very slow because it processes data step by step. So the cost is typically medium. Fourth, long short-term memory neural network. Now RNN had a limitation, right? It could not remember long-term dependencies properly. So scientists introduced LSTM. Think of LSTM as an improved version of RNN, which can remember long-term patterns. So where do we use it? Stock market trends, long text, speech recognition, etc. Anywhere long memory is required. But improvement comes with complexity. It has a complex architecture and it is a slower than modern approaches. So cost becomes medium to high. Finally, let me talk about gated recurrent unit. Let me introduce another powerful alternative to LSTM. It is called GRU, gated recurrent unit. You can think of GRU as a simplified version of LSTM. So where do we use it? We use it for text prediction, speech recognition, time series forecasting, basically similar use cases as LSTM. Now, what is its biggest advantage? It is faster and more efficient than LSTM because it has a simpler architecture. So, training is quicker and it needs less data and computation. But there are some trade-offs. First, it may not capture very long dependencies as effectively as LSTM in complex scenarios. Secondly, slightly less flexible compared to LSTM. Now, if we talk about cost, GRU is usually medium, sometimes even slightly lower than LSTM. So today we covered 5 important neural networks and more importantly, when to use each one. In the next session, I will cover the remaining neural networks so that you get a complete practical understanding. Till then, keep learning, keep building. And if you found this useful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much for watching this video.